but he did submit to what God had called him to do. Although he was a son, he learned obedience from what he suffered. And once made perfect, he became the source of eternal salvation for all who obey him, and was designated by God to be high priest in the order of Melchizedek. We often have times when there's something that we really don't want to do. There's often times where there's something that God is calling us to do, and we beg him for us not to have to do it. Or something along the way seems too hard. Something along that path seems like something that we shouldn't do, or we may even think it's above us or below us. We're above that. I remember watching over when I was up in Albany. We were watching a Thomas episode. In that Thomas episode, there was one of the trains. Thomas was not available. He had injured himself. And so there was a replacement who had come in, this lady train engine, who was to pull. And it came up to this long train that Thomas joyfully pulled every single day. And she's like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. That's what we do sometimes, isn't it? We say, I'm not going to do it. Now, usually Thomas, written by a priest in England, has a nice moral to it, but for some reason it was cut out, so that was the end. She got her way. But, for us, and for Jesus, he was called. He was called to finish this race. He was called to complete what he had been called to do. When he prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane, if God had said, okay, I'm taking this cup away from you, he would not be a high priest. He would not have finished the task and would be up a creek without a battle. But this term here that says, although his son, he learned obedience from what he suffered, and once made perfect, once he had completed the task, once he had done everything that had been asked of him, he made perfect the requirement by God. See, the thing is that the reason the priest had to offer these sacrifices day after day, take the scapegoat every year, and offer a bull for themselves every year, was that there was nothing that could make us right, justified, and sanctified before God on our own. God needed a better sacrifice. And so Jesus Christ, dying on the cross as we anticipate that, is that perfect sacrifice. God could accept nothing less than perfection. And that's one thing that we cannot offer. That's not something we have on our plates to give. Jesus Christ, perfect man and God, made perfect this road to this high priesthood, to this one who made the ultimate sacrifice for all time. He finished the race. He finished what was called of us. If any of you have run a long-distance race, you oftentimes have this desire to start out and try to get to the head of the pack, to race out. If you're in the mile, that first lap, you're in such temptation to try to take first place. And so you sprint out of the blocks, and for the first 200 meters, you're right in the lead. And then as the next 100 meters come, a couple people pass you. The next 100 meters come, a couple people pass you. So before too long, you're in the very back of the pack because you started out so fast and so hard, and you just want to quit. Be prepared to make perfect what we have been called to do, to complete. We ourselves are not perfect, but God has perfect plans for our lives. God has a call for what it is that he wants us to do, and as we have prayed and we've discerned, or we still need to pray and discern what it is that God wants us to do and to prepare for in this time of Lent, so that we can at the end do hard things. we need to consider this need to finish. We need to consider this need, of course, as well, to not try to burn ourselves out too fast. Because God has a pace for us to follow. Just like Elijah a couple weeks ago in the rocks, could have been very anxious. Okay, I want to take care of things now. And God's like, no. No, I have a plan for you. I have a pace at which you need to go. Do not get ahead of me. Do not get ahead of when I have called you to go, where I have called you to go, and how I have called you to go. But listen. And I will make perfect the plans that are for you. I worked at the Brotherhood of St. Andrew in Ambridge while I was in seminary, and one thing that I was told right after Hurricane Katrina hit was that we were so blessed. And I was just like, how is that? She's just like, everything doesn't seem to go right for me. As a matter of fact, oftentimes I think everything goes terribly wrong for me. And she's like, no, you're blessed. You're blessed. And you may not feel like it at the time, but as the time goes by, God is working in your life. God is using you, and he has set these things up. Our truck being late made it so that we still had our stuff. I traveled to Ambridge, Pennsylvania when I went to seminary, and my vehicle broke down on the way. But God had a perfect plan for me to be there, to learn, and to work in his time. Going on my own would have been going on my own. But having the vehicle break down and having God provide, meant that I went with God. And that God sent me. There was no doubt. As we prepare this time of Lent, we anticipate what this means to be made perfect. We need to prepare to finish, to pace ourselves, to listen, and to obey. Amen.